The white-armed princess thought of one last thing. Folding the clothes, she packed them into her painted wagon, hitched the sharp-hoofed mules, and climbing up herself, Nausicaa urged Odysseus, warmly urged her guest, "Up with you now, my friend, and off to town we go. I promise you, you'll meet all the best Phaeacians. Wait! Let's do it this way. You seem no fool to me. While we're passing along the fields and ploughlands, you follow the mules and wagons, stepping briskly with all my maids. I'll lead the way myself. But once we reach our city, ringed by walls and strong high towers too, with a fine harbour either side, and the causeway in is narrow, along the road the rolling ships are all hauled up, with a slipway cleared for every vessel. There's our assembly. Round Poseidon's royal precinct, built of quarried slabs planted deep in the earth. Here the sailors tend their black ship's tackle, cable, and sails, and plane their oar blades down. Phaeacians, you see, care nothing for bow or quiver, only for masts and oars and good trim ships themselves. We glory in our ships, crossing the foaming seas. But I shrink from all our sea dogs' nasty gossip. Some old salt might mock us behind our backs. We have our share of insolent types in town, and one of the coarser sort spying us might say, "Now, who's that tall, handsome stranger Nausicaa has in tow? Where'd she light on him? Her husband-to-be, just wait." But who? Some shipwrecked stray she's taken up with? Some alien from abroad? Since nobody lives nearby, unless it's really a god come down from the blue to answer all her prayers and to have her all his days. Good riddance. Let the girl go roving to find herself a man from foreign parts. She only spurns her own. Countless Phaeacians round about who court her. Nothing but our best. So they'll scoff. Just think of the scandal that would face me then. I'd find fault with a girl who carried on that way, flouting her parents' wishes, father, mother still alive, consorting with men before she'd tied the knot in public. No. Stranger, listen closely to what I say. The sooner to win your swift voyage home at my father's hands. Now, you'll find a splendid grove along the road, poplars, sacred to Pallas, a bubbling springs inside and meadows run around it. There lies my father's estate, his blossoming orchard too, as far from town as a man's shout can carry. Take a seat there, wait a while, and give us time to make it into town to reach my father's house. Then when you think we're home, walk on yourself to the city, ask the way to my father's palace, generous King Alcinous. You cannot miss it. Even an innocent child could guide you there. No other Phaeacian's house is built like that. So grand, the palace of Alcinous, our great hero. Once the mansion and courtyard have enclosed you, go quickly across the hall until you reach my mother. Beside the hearth she sits in the fire's glare, spinning yarn on a spindle, sea blue wool, a stirring sight. You'll see. She leans against a pillar, her ladies sit behind, and my father's throne is drawn up close beside her. There he sits and takes his wine, a mortal, like a god. Go past him, grasp my mother's knees. If you want to see the day of your return, rejoicing soon, even if your home's a world away, if only the Queen will take you to her heart, then there's hope that you will see your loved ones, to reach your own grand house, your native land at last. At that she touched the mules with her shining whip, and they quickly left the running stream behind. The team trotted on, their hooves wove in and out. She drove them back with care, so all the rest, maids and Odysseus, could keep the pace on foot, and she used the whip discreetly. The sun sank as they reached the hallowed grove, sacred to Athena, where Odysseus stopped and sat and said a prayer at once to mighty Zeus's daughter. "Hear me, daughter of Zeus, whose shield is thunder, tireless one, Athena. Now hear my prayer at last, for you never heard me then, when I was shattered, when the famous god of earthquakes wrecked my craft. Grant that there among the Phaeacian people I may find some mercy, and some love. So he prayed, and Athena heard his prayer, but would not yet appear to him undisguised. She stood in awe of her father's brother, Lord of the Sea, who still seethed on, still churning with rage against the great Odysseus, till he reached his native land. Now as Odysseus, long in exile, prayed in Athena's grove, the hardy mule team drew the princess toward the city. Reaching her father's splendid halls, she reined in just at the gates. Her brothers clustering around her, men like gods, released the mules from the yoke and brought the clothes indoors as Nausicaa made her way toward her bedroom. There her chambermaid lit a fire for her, Eurymedusa, the old woman who'd come from Aperea years ago, when the rolling ships had sailed her in and the country picked her out as King Alcinous' prize, for he ruled all the Phaeacians. They obeyed him like a god. Once she had nursed the white-armed princess in the palace. Now she lit a fire and made her supper in her room. At the same time, Odysseus set off towards the city. Pallas Athena, harboring kindness for the hero, drifted a heavy mist around him, shielding him from any swaggering islander who'd cross his path, provoke him with taunts and search out who he was. Instead, he was about to enter the welcome city. The bright-eyed goddess herself came up to greet him there, for all the world like a young girl, holding a pitcher, standing face to face with the visitor who asked, "Little girl, now wouldn't you be my guide to the palace of the one they call Alcinous, the king who rules the people of these parts? I am a stranger, you see, weighed down with troubles, come this way from a distant far-off shore, so I know no one here, none at all, in your city and the farmlands round about." "Oh, yes, sir, good old stranger," the bright-eyed goddess said. "I'll show you the very palace that you're after. The king lives right beside my noble father. Come quietly too, and I will lead the way. Now, not a glance at anyone, not a question. The men here never suffer strangers gladly, have no love for hosting a man from foreign lands. All they really trust are their fast flying ships that cross the mighty ocean. Gifts of Poseidon. Ah, what ships they are! Quick as a bird, quick as a darting thought." And Pallas Athena sped away in the lead as he followed in her footsteps, man and goddess. But the famed Phaeacian sailors never saw him, right in their midst, striding down their streets. Athena, the one with the lovely braids, would not permit it. The awesome goddess poured an enchanted mist around him, harboring kindness for Odysseus in her heart. And he marveled now at the balanced ships and havens, the meeting grounds of the great lords and the long ramparts looming, coped and crowned with palisades of stakes, an amazing sight to see. And once they reached the king's resplendent halls, the bright-eyed goddess cried out, "Good old stranger, here is the very palace that you're after. I've guided you all the way. Here you'll find our princes, dear to the gods, busy feasting. You go on inside, be bold, nothing to fear. In every venture, the bold man comes off best, even the wanderer, bound from distant shores. The queen is the first you'll light on in the halls. Arete, she is called, and earns the name. She answers all our prayers. She comes, in fact, from the same stock that bred King Alcinous. First came Nausithous, son of the earthquake god Poseidon, and Peribea, the lovely, matchless beauty. The youngest daughter of iron-willed Eurymedon, king of the overweening giants years ago. He led that reckless clan to its own ruin, killed himself in the bargain. But the Sea Lord lay in love with Peribea, and she produced a son, Nausithous, that Lionheart who ruled Phaeacia well. Now, Nausithous had two sons, Rhexenor and Alcinous, but the lord of the silver bow, Apollo, shot Rhexenor down. Married, true, yet still without a son in the halls, he left one child behind, a daughter named Arete. King Alcinous made the girl his wife and honors her as no woman is honored on this earth. Of all the wives now keeping households under their husband's sway, Such is her pride of place, and always will be so, dear to her loving children, to Alcinous himself and all our people. They gaze on her as a god, saluting her warmly on her walks through town. She lacks nothing in good sense and judgment. She can dissolve quarrels, even among men, whoever wins her sympathies. If only our queen will take you to her heart, then there's hope that you'll see your loved ones reach your high-roofed house, your native land at last. And with that vow, the bright-eyed goddess sped away over the barren sea, leaving welcome Scheria far behind, and reaching Marathon and the spacious streets of Athens, entered Erechtheus' sturdy halls, Athena's stronghold. Now, as Odysseus approached Alcinous' famous house, a rush of feeling stirred within his heart, bringing him to a standstill, even before he crossed the bronze threshold. A radiance, strong as the moon or rising sun, came flooding through the high-roofed halls of generous Alcinous. Walls plated in bronze, crowned with a circling frieze, gazed as blue as lapis, ran left to right from outer gates to the deepest court recess, and solid golden doors enclosed the palace. Up from the bronze threshold, silver doorposts rose with silver lintel above, and golden handles too. And dogs of gold and silver were stationed either side, forged by the god of fire, with all his cunning craft to keep watch on generous King Alcinous' palace, his immortal guard dogs, ageless all of their days. Inside, to left and right, in a long unbroken row from farthest outer gate to the inmost chamber, thrones stood backed against the wall, each draped with a finely spun brocade, women's handsome work. Here the Phaeacian lords would sit enthroned, dining, drinking. The feast flowed on forever. And young boys, moulded of gold, set on pedestals standing firm, were lifting torches high in their hands to flare through the nights and light the feasters down the hall. And Alcinous has some 50 serving women in his house, some turning the hand mill, grind the apple yellow grain. Some weave at their webs, or sit and spin their yarn, fingers flickering quick as aspen leaves in the wind, and the densely woven woolens dripping oil droplets. Just as Phaeacian men excel the world at sailing, driving their swift ships on the open seas, so the women excel at all the arts of weaving. That is Athena's gift to them, beyond all others. A genius for lovely work, and a fine mind too. Outside the courtyard, fronting the high gates, a magnificent orchard stretches 4 acres deep with a strong fence running round the side. Here, luxuriant trees are always in their prime. Pomegranates and pears and apples glowing red, succulent figs and olives swelling sleek and dark. And the yield of all these trees will never flag or die. Neither in winter nor in summer, a harvest all year round, for the west wind, always breathing through, will bring some fruits to the bud and others warm to ripeness. Pear mellowing ripe on pear, apple on apple, cluster of grapes on cluster, fig crowding fig. And here is a teeming vineyard planted for the kings. Beyond it, an open level bank, where the vintage grapes lie baking to raisins in the sun, while pickers gather others. Some they trample down in vats, and here in the front rows, bunches of unripe grapes have hardly shed their blooms, while others under the sunlight slowly darken purple. And there by the last rows are beds of greens, bordered and plotted, greens of every kind, glistening fresh year in, year out. And last, there are 2 springs, one rippling in channels over the whole orchard, the other, flanking it, rushes under the palace gates to bubble up in front of the lofty roofs where the city people come and draw their water. Such were the gifts showered down by the gods on King Alcinous' realm. And there Odysseus stood, gazing at all this bounty, a man who'd borne so much,